I just want to say something. Hi, if you don't know me, I'm Corin.
Hi, Corin.
I'm gonna stand up here. Okay. Well, and if you don't know me, I'm the one who organized this. Should I get on the table?
You gotta get on the table.
Alright. I just wanted to say a little something. I did want to start off by saying that, just to reiterate that we're all here, and we all feel very passionately about it, but this is a peaceful event. Please just don't act a fool. They're not going to treat us like adults if we act like children. Just keep it chill, and funnel that passion into cheering whenever you support something, and you can react as much as you want to. This isn't like, hey, everybody stay silent, like you do you. Aside from that, I did want to say thank you to Alcovy for letting us express our First Amendment rights and realizing that students don't lose their constitutional rights at the door. So if we can give them a round of applause, please. And I did want to say thank you to all of you for coming out. This is way more people than I expected, and it makes me so happy to see that there are youth who are empowered and ready to make a difference. So please cheer for yourself, because you guys are awesome. Before I start my main speech, I did want to take 17 seconds of silence to honor the victims of the Parkland shooting, because we're gathered here today to honor their lives and the lives of every person who's been affected by gun violence. So if we could take 17 seconds to be silent, I've got the time. We can go. All right.
Me too, Kelly.
Dylan Kramer, who is a student at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School where this shooting just occurred, sent this text to his mother on February 14th, 2018, exactly 1 month ago. He said, "Mom, I love you. There's a shooting at my school, and if anything happens, I love you so much." Dylan survived the shooting, but 17 of his fellow students and teachers were not so lucky. And it feels ridiculous to be standing on a table right now saying that somebody was lucky, because luck has nothing to do with the fact that 17 people's lives were taken by a 19-year-old former student with a weapon of war. Why is it considered lucky in 2018 that you aren't murdered at school? That's ridiculous. When I decided to do my part and plan this walkout in conjunction with the other schools around the country, I did think about what the message would be and what we'd be fighting for. I tried to get that down. Reason number one, which I judge as the most obvious, is that we don't need weapons like the AR-15 on our streets, because that is a weapon of war. It's a high velocity lethal weapon, and we don't need weapons like this with the high capacity magazines on our streets. It's not a partisan issue. I think that we all think that the lives of innocent people are way more important than how much a politician receives from the NRA. A lot of people have been discussing this tragedy and most other incidences of gun violence through a lens of it being a solely mental health issue. And while I do think that mental health is a factor in it, it's ridiculous to imagine that it's the only factor regarding it. It may be a factor and it does need to be addressed, but the main issue on the table is that that person could go in and get that AR-15 and walk out and murder 17 people. In order to own a gun in Japan, you have to attend a day-long class and pass a test that's only given one time a month. You take and pass a shooting range class, a mental test, a drug test, a background check, and only then can you own a shotgun or an air rifle, which are the only two that are allowed in the hands of private citizens. After that, you have to disclose where you store the gun and the ammo in your house, which you have to store separately. The police get to check that gun one time per year, and after that, you retake the class and exam every 3 years. And that's a lot of work, but in 2014, Japan only saw 6 cases of gun-related homicide. And by comparison, in the United States, in 2014, we saw 33,599 cases of gun-related homicide. That means that we experienced 559,983% the number of gun-related homicides that Japan did in 2014. And I think that we can all agree that stricter laws need to be put in place as to who can get a gun. It shouldn't be as simple as walking into a gun show, buying that gun, and walking back out. Because we regulate who can drive vehicles more than we regulate who can own a gun in this country. And most people who do own guns, a lot of people I've heard who do own guns, are perfectly fine going through that. If you feel like you're able to own a gun, you shouldn't mind having to go through that stuff. We should raise the age to buy guns to 21. We need to ban the sale of bump stocks and weapons of war to private citizens. but we definitely do not need any teachers walking through the hallways of Alcovy High School with a gun strapped to their waist.
Woo! Amen.
Arming teachers is one of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard of, and imagining that that's the only solution to this gun epidemic is offensively ignorant. We also certainly don't need to have metal detectors and armed guards walking around our school or bulletproof glass and walls, because we don't need to turn our school into a prison simply because politicians don't want to lose our NRA money and pass this gun control reform.
Amen.
Woo!
We live in Georgia, and more than that, we live in the United States. And the Second Amendment of the Constitution says that a well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Now tell me, is that 19-year-old boy with white supremacist and neo-Nazi ties, with multiple tips to law enforcement about signs of aggression in the past, the definition of a well-regulated militia? Because I don't think so. Every right in the Constitution comes with responsibility. Even the First Amendment has its limitations. And Second Amendment activists have to realize this too. It's not a senseless limitation or unconstitutional to keep weapons of war out of the hands of private citizens, because 18th century laws cannot govern 21st century weapons. People are going to disagree with us, and that's fine. Everybody's open to their own opinion. Politicians like our district representative Jody Heiss, our governor Nathan Deal, or Donald Trump, they're going to pass this off as a bunch of liberal teenage snowflakes. They're college triggered or libtards or whatever they think is so funny. And to them I say that so many of us in the crowd right now are going to be able to vote in the upcoming elections. Within 4 years, every single person in this crowd is going to be able to vote. We see you and we see your cowardice, and we will see you in November when we can vote you out and put in people who care about our lives.
Yeah.
So to my 18-year-olds and soon-to-be 18-year-olds in the crowd, please register to vote, because you can register to vote when you're 17 and a half in Georgia, so long as you're 18 by election day. And if you can't vote, then call your representative, because your voice does matter, and you can usher in that change that we need. Is Jatoya here? Okay, that's fine. Well, she was going to read a poem, but I'll read it instead. This is a piece by Sarah Chadwick, who is a survivor from Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, called Silence is Violence. My words are heavier than my age. I'm only 16, naive to small minds, but what I speak is larger than their ignorance. I cannot begin to understand the struggle of those before me who have risked their lives for the greater good. Those people, humanitarian warriors, fought for me to have a voice. Then why is my voice still silenced? Is it my age, my gender, my sexuality? Why do we as a whole continue to lend our ears to those who have no way of understanding? People are dying, minorities are screaming for equality, and children are begging for safety. So why do we ignore the voices of those who have the most meaningful things to say? Give her some applause, because I want to end this by asking, why are our meaningful voices ignored? Why do adults look at us and assume that since we're young, our opinions aren't valid? Why do adults seem to forget that we in this crowd right now are the future? Hear us now, we're not going to be silenced, we're not going to be ignored, and we are not going to be next.
Woo!
There's been a lot of talk in the past month about what to do. There's been a lot of talk and very little action from the people who actually can bring about this change. But we all need to be proud right now, because we are collected together as a group calling on those people to take action. Because we are taking action, we are the future, and we are going to be the generation who is going to end this gun violence epidemic. So we are doing it, everybody. Just keep going, keep fighting, and keep telling people that we have had enough. Thank you.
Amen.